Guys, I don't know if anybody's gonna be able to join me in here. After some comments that a few of you made last week, I think it was, or maybe right before Christmas, about, if there was a Stay-at-Home Mom 101 guide or course that you could give someone, what things would you include? It kind of got me thinking, and I thought it would be fun to jump in here and try and connect with some of you. I don't know if this is going to work with nap time and rest time. I tried to plan my timing being out here on the West Coast to try and see if we could coincide with a lot of the nap time, rest time times a day in the other time zones. But I know if you can always view this later if it's easier. So to start, I just was calling this kind of Stay-at-Home Mom 101 primarily the basics of feeling balanced and feeling successful. So I've been a stay-at-home mom now for almost 9 years. So I'm not necessarily an expert. I just feel like I can find the joy and feel balanced many days of the week, I guess. And so I thought maybe I would jot a few things down and share for any of you who are seeking that feeling of balance or success, or maybe just trying to connect and hear how other stay-at-home moms feel or seek those things out, I guess. So just to start, I think for me, the main thing I keep in my sights is my why I chose to be at home with my kids, why I chose to make the decision to focus on house and family. And so there's a variety of experiences in my life that I was able to learn from, and they kind of guided me in this direction, and faith is a big part of that for sure. I think it's become a bigger part over time than it was initially when I made the choice, but I would like to hear from you guys too. What's your why? What is the reason you chose to be at home with your kids and to be available for your family? I think keeping that as your number one is a way to find value in doing this, and also a way to make sure you are valuing yourself and the contribution you're making to your kids and your family, your husband. Those are all really important. So along with that value, I know a lot of moms will comment sometimes that they don't feel like they're getting enough done, or maybe their husbands don't think they're getting enough done, so they don't feel that the work that they do is being valued by their spouse. I think communication is a really key part of this. If you're feeling frustrated, I don't see why it would be inappropriate to tell that to your husband and just explain your day. I know when I first started staying at home, a done list was a big part of what I felt like I had to do for myself, just to jot down quick notes of what I actually was accomplishing every day. And then my husband was not one to come home and say, oh, what have you done? Or the house looks crazy. It doesn't look like you accomplished anything. But I think he didn't really realize how much happens in a day until, a few years in. A lot of people assume, you just have the whole day to plan around yourself and what you want to accomplish. And we know from being at home that there's so many challenges that roadblocks that prevent the day from being structured definitely around what we want to do all the time. And that's okay. We're here to care for our kids and our family, and we have to care for ourselves too. So it's about balance, and we'll get more into balance. But communicating with your spouse, it's not always easy. There's not always a perfect way to say something or a perfect presentation to make, I guess, to say things the right way. I think just being open and honest, and for you to hear his side and communicate yours. If he feels like you're not getting enough done, I guess you have to be open to explaining what it is you are doing, how the day works. It's I think when we're not in the shoes all day long, we're not with him at work all day, we don't know exactly what all he has had to deal with. He's not here with us all day to know that necessarily. So communicating with each other, finding that comfort zone to be able to just share and vent to each other, create a team. And that's one comment that one of you guys made in the Stay-at-home Moms Share Together group. That's our private group. That's sort of a way for those of us that have connected via the blog to just share in a more, private forum and connect. One of you mentioned it, I think it was Caitlin, who's a blogger at What's Up Fagans. She had said, you have to remember that you and your husband are a team. And it's true, right? I mean, there's not much more truth than that you guys are both in this together to accomplish goals. Back to that why again. Focus on the why. The two of you over time will develop that comfort zone and be able to work better together. I tend to be a little different than the crowd when it comes to advice. I'm a big fan of listening to advice, not necessarily taking it. I know some people say don't listen to advice, don't listen to what any other mom has to say about your situation, your parenting, your perspective on motherhood. I like to hear what people have to say. I'm open to different perspectives and opinions. I also think we have to be careful about disrespecting people who've been doing this motherhood thing longer than us, and be open to hearing what they have to offer. I don't think anybody gives advice with the intention to hurt all the time. I mean, sure, there's knee-jerk reactions to things and people say things that they didn't think about first, but listening to advice is not a bad thing. We tend to be kind of, focused in on everything going on, and sometimes outside eyes are a good thing. Maybe we're missing something, maybe we're not noticing something. So listening to advice, being respectful of somebody else and saying, sure, yeah, you're caring about me enough to try to encourage me or help me in my situation, then sure, I'll listen. Do I apply it? Not always, but there's plenty of times where friends or family members have pointed something out to me that I just wasn't noticing, or maybe I didn't want to, admit was going on, or so outside eyes is not a bad thing. I think there's many that have been there. They have experience that they can share with us, and so being willing to hear and learn from others is a good thing. To get to more of the comments about, like I said, I think it was right before Christmas, I asked in the Stay-at-home Moms group what you think should be in, like if there was a Stay-at-home Mom 101 course, what should be in it? And so I wanted to share some of those comments too, if you missed that comment thread a couple weeks ago. So one person had said, follow your gut, which I think is very smart. I think no one on the planet knows your kids as well as you do. That's a reality that we have to accept sometimes, that we are the expert on our kids, even if there's days where we think that we are really lacking in, the right response to a situation, or the right reaction, or maybe it's, we have to react a certain way. It just doesn't feel like it's working. But no matter what, you know your kids best. You have to use that knowledge to proceed. So follow your gut is good. Good encouragement. Don't compare is one that is also important, because nobody lives your same experience. I like to add on learn from. Don't compare from others, but learn from. There's a lot of moms that do things differently than me, and because I noticed or paid attention to it, it was helpful, because I could say, oh, well, she is doing this that way, and I would like to do it that way. And so I tried to apply it, and it worked. So I just needed that visual, or that moment of recognizing how someone else does something. So some people could say that's a comparison where you're saying, oh, she does this differently than me, but I just don't think you need to take it personally. Use it, learn from it. If it doesn't work for you, then move on. It's not bad, again, to learn from other people's experiences. Don't sweat the small stuff. It was another comment that another mom made in the group, which is so true. We can get hung up on dishes in the sink and laundry piled on the couch and see that, but forget that we've been changing diapers and diffusing tantrums and taking the kids to the playground to burn off energy and making meals. And those are valuable things that have to happen, at least every day, a million times a day. So I think one of the things that came to mind for me was that successful day checklist. I don't know if you guys saw that. I know the idea of successful day checklist makes people uncomfortable because it makes it sound like being a successful mom could be boiled down into some check boxes on a piece of paper, and that wasn't my intention with titling it that way. This is definitely created, it's a subscriber freebie, so if you're subscribed by email to the blog, you will get access to that. You can download it for free, put it on your fridge. I put mine in a, just a plastic sleeve so I could use it as a dry erase board on the fridge. But so anyway, I wanted to get back to saying, I don't think being successful can be boiled down into a checklist, but if you're a mom with an infant and you're feeding every 2 to 4 hours and you're having, like, basically every task you start is getting interrupted by necessary other tasks that maybe don't result in the dishwasher being filled and the laundry getting folded, this is a way to just, like, check yourself. Go back and say, okay, morning, I made breakfast. Yep, that's done. We did an activity together. I fed the baby, or we read a book, or this doesn't have to be, like Pinterest activities. It can be simple stuff. We went on a walk. We walked the dog. That's activity together with your child. So I made it in a checklist form just so it's like that done list idea where you can check off, you can say, oh, I didn't get to clean up the kitchen this morning and now it's lunchtime. So I'm going to do that for sure before we, get to our rest time. So it's just like a mental checklist so you don't get lost in the shuffle of the day. I think that's helpful for finding balance. The goal is not necessarily to have all of those boxes checked by the end of the day. I mean, sure, on a good day, that'd be great. We probably all would wish we could keep track of all that stuff every day. But just trying to get into some sort of routine. That was sort of the purpose. Another mom said, it takes time to figure it out, and that's so true. And I think every time you add a child, or your child goes from one developmental phase to another, there's more figuring out. But there's a fun quote out there that says, everything is figure outable. And it is, but you're going to have to work through it. And that's the big challenge of being a mom, is there's always a new stage to work through. There's always a new child. If you, have more than one, there's always multiple personalities, and you're trying to parent the same way for both, and you're getting different results, and so that's frustrating. So you have to just be flexible, be easy on yourself, and take the time. Again, remember, you know your child better than anybody else. So if anybody's going to be able to figure it out, it's you. It just may take longer than you want it to. Taking time for you and your husband, that was another recommendation, and that's extremely important. Harder in some stages than others when you're totally exhausted after an infant sleep, causing you sleep deprivation. So I think for me, what has worked is taking time for me, like doing this with you right now. This is my me time. The twins are doing their rest time and have not knocked on the door to come in here and ask for anything to eat or drink yet, so we're doing pretty well. But they're doing their rest time. I'm doing my me time. Yeah, I'm doing something active. I'm here with you. You have the option to interact. So that's fun for me. It doesn't feel like it's, something that I'm doing separate from being able to fuel myself at the same time. The other thing is the blog for me is something that I do to encourage others, but it also has been really great for me. Taking time for my husband, I try to make sure that in the evenings, it's just him and I, where, after the kids do go to sleep, and we are at a point where all the kids are going to sleep at the same time for the most part. There might be one that will wake up a few times after we've put them to bed. But for the most part, most days, they're going to sleep, and we, have the time in the evening after they go to bed, before we go to bed, to, watch TV and just rehash the day. So that is our time. We don't get to go on a lot of date nights because we don't have local family, and we don't have a lot of babysitting options. So for us, that's what we focus on, is just, movies and interacting, communicating, back to that point again, right? That point that I made earlier, you and your husband are on the same team. So this isn't a me versus him. And that was really hard for me in the first few years because I wanted the outside recognition. I wanted someone to say, oh, that's really great that you accomplished that today. That's really, thanks for changing 25 diapers in a day. And it didn't happen. I had to do that for myself. I had to just remember my why, appreciate that I was there to be the one to do it, appreciate that I was blessed to have a child. You know, how many people do you know that want that and just can't have it? It's not in the cards for them. That's a huge thing to remember. It's a privilege, it's a blessing. And we're on the same team. We don't need to be competing about who did more today. And I think that takes time to get to. I think I'm finally at the point where I don't really do it anymore. I don't want to say, you know, that I've completely gotten to that point, but I'm sure I have days where I say, you know, I've done this and this and this, and it seems like you're not doing as much as you could. So I have to check myself on that too, because he contributes to our family in different ways, and we're very appreciative for that for sure. Eat, sleep, shower. Those are pretty simple, right? Except when you have little kids, those three things, trying to accomplish them yourself become huge obstacles during certain stages. I think we need to cut ourselves some slack. They're important, yes. We have to eat regularly. We have to sleep as regularly as we can. But I think there are certain facts of motherhood, and I wrote a post about like 10 facts moms need to accept. You're not always going to get the sleep that the experts say you need to have every day. Which is why I actually think the beauty of being a stay-at-home mom or work-at-home mom is that you can kind of compensate for that the next day a bit. Yeah, your kids are going to go, but we can have a, you know, we can do our rest time. If I had a rough night last night and I'll just sit with them and watch a movie, then we're both getting our rest. We're compensating for the lack of sleep the night before. Showering has been creative. It's good to try to get a schedule figured out. Some days are easier than others, and I think once you get to the 2 to 3 year old age, maybe even 3+, that stuff all becomes a little easier. I'm still not good at waking up before my kids because they wake up so early. So I tend to fit the shower in the evening, either after dinner or after the kids have gone to bed. Occasionally, when my older two are home on their homeschool days, I can you know, squeeze it in after lunch. But you have to kind of, I guess, find that comfort zone for you, and just know that I think every mom goes through that, where some days you're thinking like, how do I not even fit in a shower? And yet people think you have all this time to do whatever you want to do all day long, right? So again, take the time to just let the schedule figure itself out. Everything's figure outable. Your showers will happen regularly soon again. One mom asked a few questions, which I thought were really very important to talk about. So the first one that was asked was, how do you nourish relationships that nourish you? For me, this has been accepting the fact that I'm going to be the one that has to reach out and schedule play dates or be proactive. And that can be kind of tiring sometimes, you know, to be the one that has to say, hey, why don't we get together and go do this? Or you want to come over and let the kids play, or let's meet at a playground, or I used to do a lot of bigger play dates regularly. I don't do so many of them now because I feel like I just have, with all the kids and our current schedule, I just don't have the grasp on having those amounts of free time, I guess, to do that. But it's important to try and reach out. And if you feel like nobody's inviting you to play dates, then be the one to host something, and your house doesn't have to be perfectly clean. I think just texting friends sometimes, like if you're thinking about, just send a friend a text and say, how's your day going? That nourishes relationships. You know, we can't always be on the phone for an hour when we have kids making noise in the background. And if you're like me in my house, the second I pick up my phone to talk, somebody needs something, or is, you know, that's when the screaming starts. So I think nourishing relationships, be patient too. I don't know that in this season of life, when we have small children, that our friendships are going to be center stage. I think there's so much nourishing of relationships with our children and our husbands that have to take place. At least from my perspective, there's plenty of moms that have large groups of friends. I think for us too, moving every 3 years, I tend to have like a smaller handful of close friends each time we move, not huge communities of people. But just giving people time, simple things. I don't think we need to be overcomplicating friendships either. You know, like I said, send them a text message, Ask them to come over and play, even if your house isn't dust free. Mine is never dust free, but we won't share that, right? How do you maintain your personal identity in the midst of motherhood? For me, I haven't felt like I've had to lose myself because I felt so pulled or called to be at home with my kids that it just felt like it was what I had to do. So I feel like I've been able to grow my personal identity while being a mom, but I know, having been a teacher and a childcare caregiver before, that that's probably a little easier than it is, say, if you were an accountant, or you were, a journalist, or you were, countless other, a nurse, maybe nursing too, I think is a pretty easy transition to being a mom. But when you're used to a different daily, different daily interactions and more interactions with adults, I think it might feel like you're losing more of yourself. I think, just get back to what you like to do. Pick something. For me, it's reading before bed. It's also, the writing and the blogging, and just being able to develop at-home businesses through those avenues has fueled me and my ability to contribute back financially too. But it's just a way to explore who I am, and share that and connect with others on that basis. Let's see. I'm going to try and wrap it up here pretty soon because we don't want to take too much time. But the other question was, how do you keep your marriage strong? I think you just have to make the time. You have to. I don't think you have to have a date night every week. We don't. And we have a pretty strong, close relationship. We've known each other a long time, since our senior year of high school. So we've grown through a lot of stages of life together, which has been nice. But even if it's just an hour or two at night, I think you just have to make it a priority and put the phones down. And it's easier to connect while you're watching a movie than it is if you're on your phone. At least in my opinion. If you do need to do the date nights, do it. If you have a babysitter and that's what you guys like to do to connect, then do it. Just plan it out, once a month or every 2 weeks. Or you guys tell me, what do you do to make your marriage strong? What do you do to nourish that relationship that nourishes you in return? I'd like to actually read your comments too. We're kind of boring, I guess. We keep it simple. We do things on the weekend together as a family too. I think parenting together helps our marriage. So that we're all together, both he and I and the kids, and interacting and learning our, different ways of parenting our children, and that has helped our marriage too. Let's see, how to get enough done. So I said already, my house is pretty much always dusty. That's like the last thing I ever get to. But my main priority is always decluttering. If I have clear counters, for the most part, with kids and life, that's tricky to keep all the time. But if I keep the clutter down, I feel at least like my house is functional and it looks like I've done something all day. I did, that successful day checklist is kind of a key for me, because it reminds you of different times of the day to kind of keep up on those household tasks. We have to be honest, we are homemakers along with being moms. And so I don't know that just setting all the house stuff aside is the way you want to go, because that's just going to pile up. So you got to kind of find the balance, and I have not been able to find a regular schedule until this year. So the twins are 3. They just turned 3 at the end of December. So it's taken that much time to find a cleaning schedule. I would always fall off, and then for me, if I have this cleaning checklist of this day I do this, and this day I do this, and this day I do this, and I miss something there, then I feel like it throws everything else off. So for me, it's just been, if it's dirty, I clean it. There's been stages when there's been infants, like when the twins were infants, I think my house was not in good condition a lot of the time because I just didn't have big windows of time to clean. So learning when you can fit things in. Maybe Saturday mornings the family just cleans. You just pick that time and you just do everything all at once. Excuse me. I think decluttering is a big focus, just because at least if things look like they're put away and put together. It kind of eases your mind that you've got the house in working order, and then it's easier to kind of separate and spend that quality time together too. But I don't think leaving, dishes in the sink to go read a book with your kid is a terrible thing. You kind of have to find that personal balance. Ask friends what they do, what's their cleaning schedule. I tend to do like Mondays and Fridays are bigger cleaning days. Wednesdays too, I'll do some. But like I said, sometimes there's things that interrupt that and it doesn't get done when I want to. So then I just go back in a different time of the day and clean the bathrooms if I miss cleaning them on Wednesday. Or, vacuum. That stuff's done regularly. You kind of find the things that you need to do to feel accomplished. For me, it's easier to get those things done in the morning, Mondays and Fridays, and then I feel like the rest of the day I've accomplished something already, so it's not too big of a deal if I get a bunch of other things done, because so much of my day is just interacting with the kids too, making meals. That's a large part of the day. So you kind of have to work through and find what will work for you to feel successful, but use those cleaning checklists and tips as a starting point, and then just adapt to what your schedule will allow. How to make friends as a mom. That was another question someone had. For me, like I said, it's been being proactive, just deciding that if I wanted to meet people, I was going to do what it takes to do that. There's lots of running groups or walking groups that you can join. MOPS is huge. Every time we've moved, I have joined MOPS, and that's been a good way just to get that communication and connection with moms in a similar stage of life. I haven't had as much luck lately just in the neighborhood with people being out and about. We did in one neighborhood where we lived, where there were just a lot of moms with kids, and so I started a play group, and that was a great option. If you really want to be adventurous, just create a flyer and put it in mailboxes and see who contacts you, and if not, then call your friends who are long distance on the phone once a week and do a group FaceTime play date if that's what it takes. Get that interaction. Just develop the relationships that you do have. Sometimes we're like seeking and seeking and seeking to find that best friend, and maybe it's just not time. Friendships do take a lot of our time to develop and nourish, and so much of our time is needed by just life in general with our kids and our husbands and our house, and we keep adding more relationships to nurture, which is great, but seeking that balance again, focus on the most important relationships in your life right now. And I think through that, you'll end up making friends who are in similar situations. Maybe you have friends who aren't at home. So then, try and take like a Saturday to just go have lunch, or just be proactive. I think don't be scared that people are going to say no or they don't want to do it, because you have nothing to lose, right? If you're sitting at home wishing that you had some friends around, just reach out and get something going. Let's see. The biggest thing for me is just accepting those facts of motherhood. Like I said before, there's going to be big challenges, and other moms go through them too. It's not just you. Hopefully, by interacting in the Stay-at-Home Moms Share Together group, you're able to see that that's a great place to connect too if you don't have a lot of moms in your area. But there's just going to be stages that you're going to go through as a mom, even as your children are going through different stages, and you're going to have to bring different things to the table in each stage. You'll get through the sleepless nights, and then there'll be, other things that come up, but eventually one stage will end. Like I was always told by my parents, this too shall pass. And that's a hopeful thing, that the struggles will pass, but also the good moments too are going to change. So, once you get past that infant stage, there's not just a little being there that wants to be held all the time. So you kind of have to cherish the moments when you have them. It's really hard to feel that in those moments where you just don't think you have an ounce of energy left to do it, but it will pass. And I'm actually really interested to hear just read your interactions and thoughts and your encouragement, because you're doing this too, so you have valuable information to share, and I'd actually really love to read your comments when I'm done here and hear what you think is kind of the biggest lessons you've learned from being at home, and what you have to share with a mom who might be struggling with that choice. So thanks for being here, and we have another one of these coming up in a couple weeks, but I'll put a reminder in. Hopefully we can interact and share and just encourage each other to keep being the best moms we can be for our kids, right? Have a good day, guys.